The keypad code didn't work. I punched it in 3 times, my 8-year-old daughter pressing her face to the glass door of the wellness center I'd paid for. And on the 4th try, a woman I'd never seen came out holding a laminated sheet. My name was on it, photo and all, under a header that read, "Do not grant access." Underneath, in my younger sister's handwriting, someone had added a line in red marker, "She will sue you." I stood there in the cold lobby with my daughter's hand in mine, looking at my own face flagged like a threat at the front desk of the business I had bankrolled. I didn't yell. I didn't pound on the glass. I didn't cry, even though something behind my ribs felt like it cracked clean in half. I just took my daughter's hand a little tighter and walked her back to the car. Quick thing before I go on. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I genuinely like knowing who's out there. It helps me keep going. My phone was already buzzing on the passenger seat by the time I buckled my daughter in. Mom lit up the screen, then a text underneath it. "Where are you? The investors are here. Do not embarrass this family." I didn't open it. I didn't type back something furious about how my mother's other daughter had just put my photo at a front desk like I was a shoplifter. I scrolled past her name in my favorites and tapped the one right below it. Property management. The leasing company that held the commercial lease on the building. A man named Mr. Okafor answered on the second ring, friendly, a little distracted. "This is Daniel Okafor." "Mr. Okafor, it's the leaseholder for Suite 200, I said. My voice came out flat and even, which surprised me because inside I was shaking. "I'm standing in the parking lot of my own unit and your tenant has just barred me from the premises." "I'm sorry, barred you? You're the leaseholder." There must be some confusion. There's no confusion. There's a printed sign at the front desk with my photograph on it instructing staff not to let me in. "I'd like you to pull up the lease." I heard him shuffle papers, then the clack of a keyboard. I knew exactly what he was looking at because I'd signed every page of it myself 11 months ago. My name, my credit, my personal guarantee on a $40,000 build-out loan, because my sister's credit was a graveyard and my mother had cried at my kitchen table about how this was my sister's one chance to finally make something of herself. "Okay," he said slowly. Yes, I'm seeing it. You are the named tenant." "Then you understand the problem," I said. "My sister is listed nowhere on this lease. She has no legal standing to occupy that space, let alone to bar the actual leaseholder from entering. As of right now, she is a guest I am choosing to remove." There was a long pause. In the background I could hear, faintly, the soft hum of a launch party, the little tinkle of glasses, the murmur of people I had paid to impress, sipping Prosecco I had bought, in a room I would never be welcome in. "Ma'am," he said, and I could hear him picking his words like he was stepping across a frozen pond. "I can't just. There's an event going on in there right now." "I'm aware. It's a grand opening for a business operating out of a unit leased solely in my name." I looked at the clock on my dash. 4:12. "Here's where we are, Mr. Okafor. Either you contact your tenant and inform her that the leaseholder is revoking access to all unauthorized occupants effective immediately, or I file a written notice that the premises is being used in violation of the lease, and your management company is now on record as having been notified. Your choice. But I'd think about which of those costs your firm more." He exhaled. I'd heard that exact exhale 100 times in my job. I do contracts and compliance for a mid-size logistics company. I have made grown men make that exact sound across a conference table. He knew I wasn't bluffing. "Let me make a call," he said. I didn't hang up. I just lowered the phone to my lap and watched the front of the building through my windshield. My daughter humming to herself in the back seat, oblivious, asking if we could get nuggets. "In a minute, baby," I said. "Mama's working." It took maybe 4 minutes. First I saw a man in a catering apron come to the glass door and look out at the lot, phone to his ear, confused. Then the warm gold light in the front windows, the expensive Edison bulbs my sister had insisted on, the ones I'd approved the invoice for, flickered. And I realized someone inside was turning things off. The open sign in the window went dark, Through the glass, I could see bodies shifting, heads turning, the particular slow ripple that moves through a crowd when something has just gone wrong and nobody said what yet. My phone, still in my lap, lit up. Mom. Then Mom again. Then a name I hadn't let myself think about in an hour, my sister. Then a number I didn't know. Then Mom, a third time. I didn't answer any of them. I put the car in reverse, backed out slow, and pulled onto the road. The highway out of that part of town runs along the river, and the late sun was hitting the water in these flat, hard sheets. My hands were steady on the wheel. My chest was not. It felt scraped out, the way it had felt for 2 years, ever since my husband's heart just stopped on a Tuesday morning while he was making the kids' lunches. 34 years old, no warning, no goodbye. You've got that life insurance just sitting in an account, my mother had said. Sitting there? Like it was a savings bond I'd forgotten about and not the entire price of a man's life. My sister has a real shot here. A wellness studio's exactly the kind of thing this town needs. You'd be investing, really. You'd basically own part of it. I never owned part of it. I want to be honest about that, because I've gone back over it 1,000 times. There was no operating agreement that gave me equity. There was a lease in my name and a loan I personally guaranteed and a verbal promise made in my own kitchen over decaf that I'd be a partner. I knew better. I do this for a living. I know what a promise is worth without ink. And I signed anyway because for 31 years I had been the one who fixed things in my family and I didn't know how to be anything else. I was the one who covered Mom's mortgage the winter the furnace died. I was the one who quietly paid off my sister's repossession before it hit Mom's radar. I was the daughter who showed up with a casserole and a checkbook. That was my role. That was the rent I paid to keep my seat at the table. And somewhere along the way, I'd convinced myself that the day I stopped paying was the day they'd stop loving me, so I just never stopped. They took the money my husband died to give us, I thought. Watching a barge slide under the bridge. And they used it to print my face on a sign. I almost laughed. It was so efficient, honestly. They'd cashed the dream and then drawn up a little laminated rule to make sure the woman who paid for it and her 2 fatherless kids didn't gum up the aesthetic of the launch photos. But here's the thing they forgot about the family fixer. We're the ones who keep the receipts. We know which accounts the auto pay comes out of. We know whose name is on the dotted line. We dug the foundation, so we know exactly where it's weak. I picked the kids up. I'd had my daughter with me, but my son was at his after-school program, and I drove us home to the little brick rental on the east side of town. Nothing like the glass and blonde wood studio I'd just gone dark. And for the first time all day, the noise stopped. It didn't last. By the time I got the kids inside and started warming up leftover spaghetti, my phone was going off so hard it walked itself across the counter. I set it face up just to make the buzzing stop, and the screen was a wall of names. Mom. 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 My sister. Mom. An unknown number. My sister. I made the mistake of tapping the latest voicemail on speaker while I stirred the pot. My mother's voice filled my kitchen, and she didn't sound scared. She sounded annoyed. The way she got when I disappointed her by having a need. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you call that property man back this instant and tell him it was a mistake. There are 40 people standing in a dark parking lot. Your sister is humiliated. Do not make me drive over there. You fix this. Now, fix this. The 2 words my whole childhood was built on. The next voicemail was my sister, and she wasn't annoyed. She was shrieking, the audio peaking into static. You jealous, miserable, you couldn't keep your own husband alive, and now you want to make sure nobody else gets anything good either. You're a bitter, dried-up widow, and everybody can see it. I hate you. I stood there holding a wooden spoon. She didn't say I was wrong. She didn't say the sign was a mistake. She reached straight for the worst day of my life and used it as a weapon, because she knew it was the one thing that could still cut me. Then a notification slid down from the top of the screen. My sister is live. I should not have tapped it. I tapped it. She was standing in that dark parking lot, mascara streaked just enough for the camera. And she had her phone out selfie style, voice cracking on cue. So my own sister just sabotaged my opening night. She sobbed to whoever was watching. She hacked the building. She's been stealing from me this whole time. She's not well, you guys. She's genuinely not well, and she's trying to take the money I worked so hard for. If anyone knows a good lawyer, please. My hand started to shake again. And right on schedule, the old voice in my head woke up. You went too far. They're going to tell everyone you'll be the villain. Just call him back. Just write one more check. Just smooth it over like you always do. My thumb was already moving toward my mother's name. I could fix it. I could always fix it. And then I looked up. Down the hall in the living room, my 2 kids were building a blanket fort over the couch, my 8-year-old bossing my 6-year-old around about where the front door went, both of them laughing, completely safe, completely unaware that 2 miles away, a laminated sign with their mother's face on it had called her a thing to be kept out. My son looked up and yelled, "Mom, you can be the dragon." The shaking stopped, because my sister hadn't just barred me. She'd looked at the 2 people my husband left behind, the only living pieces of him I have, and decided we were a liability. A bad look. Something that would ruin the photos. I put the spoon down. I closed the live stream. I turned my phone face down on the counter, and I went and was the dragon for 20 minutes, and I let them defeat me with couch cushions, and I did not pick the phone back up. When I finally did, there were 9 missed calls. I ignored 8 of them. The 9th was that unknown number again, and something made me answer it. "This is the leaseholder," I said, already braced for a lawyer, a reporter, one of my sister's friends ready to scream. "My name is Vivian Castellano," a woman said. Crisp, older, the kind of voice that's used to rooms going quiet when it speaks. "I was supposed to be the keynote at your sister's little opening this evening." I knew the name. Everyone in this town knew the name. She owned the regional chain of women's health clinics, the one with her face on billboards off the interstate, the one my sister had been name-dropping for months as proof this whole thing was legitimate. She was the reason the investors had shown up. She was the catch. "Ms. Castellano," I said carefully. "If you're calling about tonight, I direct any questions to—" "I'm not calling to yell at you," she said. "I'm calling because I just stood in a parking lot and watched 40 people leave, and your mother spent 10 of those minutes telling everyone within earshot that her daughter had a mental breakdown and tried to rob her own sister. And I have been doing business for 30 years, and I know the sound of a true story and the sound of a cover story, and that was a cover story, so I'd like to hear the real one." "Why did you shut it down?" I hesitated. This woman could end me in this town with one dinner conversation, but I was so tired of managing how I looked to people who'd already decided. "I shut it down," I said, "because that lease is in my name. The build-out loan is personally guaranteed by me. I have paid for every inch of that business with money my husband's death left to me and our children. And tonight, when I showed up with my 8-year-old, my sister had my photograph printed at the front desk under the words, 'Do not grant access.' Was a note in her handwriting telling the staff to keep me and my kids out so we wouldn't ruin her opening." The silence on the line was so complete I checked to see if the call had dropped. "She put your children on a list," Vivian said. It wasn't a question. "She told them my kids were a liability," I said, and my voice finally broke a little on the word, and I hated it. "I saw the sign, Ms. Castellano. I read it myself." I heard her breathe out slow. Then I heard a car door and an engine. "I turned my SUV around in the middle of the road just now," she said. "I want you to listen to me. I drove out here tonight because your sister told me this studio was woman-owned, trauma-informed, all the words I care about. She told me the founder was a young widow rebuilding her life. She let me believe that founder was her. It was you, wasn't it? The widow, the one who paid." "I'm not the founder," I said. "There's no agreement that, on paper, you're the only person legally tied to that business," she said. "I had my assistant pull the public lease filing while your mother was still talking. You're not a partner, you're the owner, Your sister is a squatter with a key. A pause. Are you home? Yes. Stay there. Lock your door. I'm not being dramatic. I've watched people lose access to money they thought was theirs, and the next move is always to come to the house and make a scene. Your mother already knows where you live. I've got a person who used to run security for my clinics. He's about 15 minutes from your area, and I'm sending him to sit outside your house tonight. No charge, no strings. I just don't like what I heard in your mother's voice. You don't have to. I know I don't, Vivian said. And as for your sister, I won't be lending my name, my keynote, or $1 to a person who flags a widow's children as a security risk. I'll be making that very clear to the people who came tonight on my recommendation. You didn't ruin an opening tonight, honey. You stopped me from putting my reputation behind a viper. Lock your door. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen with the spaghetti going cold on the stove and looked out my front window at the empty, ordinary street. Quiet. Normal. And somehow the quiet scared me more than the buzzing had. Then my phone lit up one more time and it wasn't family. It was Mr. O'Callfor, the property manager. His text was short. Heads up. Your sister and an older woman just showed up at our after-hours office demanding I refund a deposit to a card. Says you stole money. Showed me a paper claiming she's authorized on the account. She is not on the lease. I'm not doing anything until I hear from you. My blood went cold. I called him back and he answered on the first ring, his voice low, like he was hiding in his own office. They're in the lobby, he whispered. You sister and I think it's your mother. They've got some printout that looks like it's supposed to be a power of attorney. It's notarized. It's not anything. They want me to push the unused build-out funds to a different card. I told them I can't, and your sister called me a name I won't repeat. Don't transfer $1 to anyone but the account on the lease, I said. And I was in full work mode now, calm and exact, because this was the one language I'd always been fluent in. If you move those funds on an unverified authorization, that's not a family squabble. That's wire fraud on a $40,000 loan that I personally guaranteed. I'll email you my ID and the loan docs in 5 minutes. You're protected if you do nothing. You are deeply unprotected if you do something. Understood. He breathed. I'm telling them the police have been called. That usually moves people along. It did move them along. It moved them along. It moved them. 20 minutes later to my front door, I heard the car first, my mother's old Buick, the one with the belt that squeals, and then the doorbell, and then the pounding. 3 of them on my porch. My mother, my sister, still in the silk jumpsuit she'd bought for the opening mascara, fully ruined now. Real this time. And behind them, hanging back, my mother's husband, looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere on earth. Open this door, my mother shouted through the glass. Open it right now. You've humiliated us in front of the whole town. I did not open the door. I stood on the inside of it. Kids ushered upstairs and I said through the glass, loud and clear, I paid for everything. The lease, the loan, the lights, the Prosecco that's getting warm in there right now. And tonight you put my children on a list. So no, I'm not opening this door, and if you don't leave my porch, I'm calling the police. That was when my sister lost the last of it. She bent down to the little river rock border. My landlord put around the flower bed, picked up a stone the size of a softball, and before her own mother could grab her arm, she threw it through my living room window. The glass came down like rain. The kids screamed upstairs. I screamed. And out of a dark sedan that had been sitting across the street the whole time I never noticed it, a very large, very calm man in a quarter zip stepped out and crossed my lawn in about 4 strides and had my sister's arm pinned behind her back before she could pick up a second drop. The police were already coming. Mr. Okafor really had called them. They pulled up to find my sister cuffed against the security man's sedan, my mother on the lawn screaming that this was all a misunderstanding, and a 6-year-old crying in an upstairs window. My sister was arrested for the window criminal mischief, And the officer added something about menacing once he saw the rock and the broken glass in my kids. My mother kept saying, "She's not herself, and do you know who we are in this town?" And the officer, God bless him, said, "Ma'am, step back onto the sidewalk." I gave my statement on my own front step with a blanket around my shoulders that the security man, his name was Cole, he told me later, he had a daughter the same age as mine, had pulled from his trunk. I watched my mother and her husband get told to leave. My mother looked at me on her way to the Buick, and for 1 second I thought she might say something true. She said, "I hope you're happy." I wasn't happy, but I was something I hadn't been in a very long time. I was done. 3 days later, the build-out loan funds were frozen and resecured to the account on the lease, exactly as they should have been, and Mr. Bay, Okafor, who turned out to be a genuinely decent man, helped me start the paperwork to formally terminate my sister's access and either close the studio or run it myself. Vivian Castellano called me twice that week. The second time, she offered to buy out the lease and bring the space into her own clinic network, with me consulting on the contracts, paid in writing, ink on paper. I told her I'd think about it. I'm still thinking. It feels strange to be offered something instead of asked for something. My sister took a plea on the vandalism. There's a no-contact order now, which my lawyer says works in my favor in ways my family hasn't figured out yet. My mother has sent me 11 messages. The first 10 were variations on how I'd torn the family apart. The 11th, last night, just said, "Call me, we can fix this." I read it standing in my kitchen, in front of the window with the cardboard still taped over the hole, and I felt the old reflex stir. The one that's lived in me my whole life. The one that says you are only loved as long as you are useful. And then I deleted it. I blocked all 3 of them, one after another, my thumb steady. That night, the kids and I ate cold pizza on the living room floor because the table's still pushed against the boarded window, and my daughter asked if the lady who broke our window was gone for good. And I said, "Yes, baby, she's gone for good." And my son asked if I'd be the dragon again. And I said, "Maybe tomorrow, Mama's tired." I sat there on the floor with my 2 kids and a box of pizza in a rented house with a broken window. And I finally understood what I'd actually bought that day in the parking lot. It wasn't a wellness studio. It wasn't my family's approval. For 2 years, I've been spending my husband's last gift trying to purchase a seat at a table that was never going to have a chair for me or his children. What I bought, the day I made that phone call and drove away, was the right to stop paying. For 2 years, I told myself the checks were love. The mortgage I covered, the repossession I quietly paid off, the studio I financed with the money my husband died to leave us. I called all of it family, when the honest word was rent. I was paying for a chair at a table that never had one set out for me, and I knew it the way you know a tooth is going bad and keep chewing on the other side anyway. What I've come to see is that nothing about that night was random. My sister didn't put my face at that front desk out of nowhere. She did it because for 31 years I taught her that I would absorb anything and still write the next check. Every time I smoothed things over, I was quietly promising her there was no line she could cross. The rock through my window was just the last sentence of a story I've been helping her write since we were kids. Cause and effect. You can't pour yourself into people who've decided you're useful and act surprised when they treat you like a tool. But here's the part I hold on to. The same night cut both ways. The reason Daniel Okafor refused to move that money, the reason Vivian Castellano turned her car around, the reason Cole was already parked across my street. None of that was luck either. It came from knowing my own contracts, from reading every page I signed instead of trusting a promise made over decaf, from staying calm enough on that phone to say the one true thing instead of the loud thing. I didn't win because I got angry. I won because I knew exactly what I'd signed and I refused to lie about it. If there's anything I'd want my own kids to take from this, it's 3 things that have nothing to do with money. Know what's right, even when the people who raised you call it betrayal. My mother said I tore the family apart. But I know what I saw on that laminated sheet, and I won't unsee it for her comfort. Be the kind of smart that reads the fine print, because the world is full of people who count on you not to. and find the spine to walk away from the thing you've poured your whole life into, when keeping it costs you your children's dignity. I'm still in the rented house with the cardboard taped over the window. I haven't decided yet about Vivian's offer, but last night my daughter asked if the bad lady was gone for good, and I said yes, and I meant it. And for the first time in 2 years, no part of me reached for the phone to fix anything. What I bought that day in the parking lot wasn't a studio or my family's approval. It was the right to stop paying, and I'd buy it again.